So good afternoon and welcome to Mike. Mike, we're talking about the second lockdown survey LeisureNet have recently completed. I think we got over 33,000 people responded to it, so we've got a really good data set. But I just wanted to ask you what you thought the highlights were from a sort of a customer experience point of view.
I think the key thing is this confidence indicator question that we've introduced, Dave. Really interesting about how relatively confident the people that have actually returned and experienced all the systems and processes that are in place. I think it's very positive that 69% of people are scoring that 9 to 10. Remember, we developed this question similar to NPS, scored 0 to 10. And for people to be scoring a 9 or 10 means they're extremely confident. So we got 69% of people saying extremely confident, only 12% saying not confident at all. Now, from an NPS point of view, that would be pretty good score for our sector. It equates to a sort of an NPS type score of 50%, over 50%. And most people would be happy with that. But I think the key thing is that that 12% of people saying they're not at all confident. Imagine if any business lost 12% of their customer base, or, they had such a bad experience and they'd never return. And at the moment, that's the way people are feeling. It only needs one thing to go wrong in the gym, or if the group exercise classes are running, something to happen at reception. And at the moment, those particular people are feeling such a lack of confidence that how long is it going to be until we can persuade them to come back?
No, absolutely. I think it's really interesting because you bring into there the appetite for risk as well. And there are people who will not feel confident whatever we've done in order to create those environments for them. But I think the positive to be taken from that, and that's the quality of reactivate training, the quality of retrain training, the bits the sector have put out there, particularly CIMSPA, about upskilling people, the advice from Right Directions and things like that. I think there's been some really good work done there to give us that confidence score. But you're absolutely right. That consumer index effectively around how people feel, I think it's really powerful from that. I think so. I don't know whether the confidence changes, but the thing around gender as well, there seems to be some changes around how women feel and felt.
When we did the first survey, it was very much that women and older people were much more cautious about returning. In fact, they still are. Generally, younger people and males seem to be much more confident about returning. But once the confidence indicator question is all about once people have returned, how confident did they feel after, during and after that experience? And it's really interesting that the gender differences then are eliminated. Once people visit, women are just as scoring our facilities just as highly as men are once they've been in. It's almost like women need to come in and see for themselves what the systems and procedures are and see how they actually feel in the environment. Perhaps men are much more, it'll all be okay, I'm sure, whereas there's just a bit more proof and evidence needed for women. So we still have the differences in age groups. There's pretty much a linear relationship between the different age groups and how confident they are about returning before they return, but also that confidence indicator after they returned. It's those older age groups that we really need to focus on, but in both those respects.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that also linked back to the speed of return, wasn't it? I think it was a really impressive, about 76% of people said they were going to return to their clubs immediately lockdown went finished as well, which is just brilliant news for the sector, but also demonstrates the quality of what we've been doing to make it feel.
I think so. Yeah. Over 3/4 saying they're going to return, planning to return in January and February. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because the way things are falling now in terms of the lockdown, people feeling a bit better about the vaccination coming on board, and that's just tuned in or timed in perfectly with traditional start of the year optimism about people and their physical activity. So a lot of people won't have done anything or won't have come back to their gym because they wouldn't have done anything in October, November, certainly December. But I think January and February are now going to be absolutely crucial, because I think we're going to have a lot more demand from people who are wanting to come back, and that's going to put much more pressure and strain on those systems and processes that we've put in place. But absolutely critical that we make that experience as positive, as safe, and give people as much confidence as possible. Because if you think about it, we probably when we reopened in, it was August, wasn't it, that we reopened? The numbers, we knew the numbers that were going to come back, who wanted to come back, was going to be minimal. But now I think there's going to be a bigger tranche of our old customer base and potentially some new customers that are going to want to come back in January and February.
Absolutely. And I think activity levels have demonstrated that actually it's so much harder to take part in physical activity when it's dark. When you go to work in the dark, you get home from work in the dark, it's cold, it's wet, and step counts have gone down, and actual levels of activity have gone down as well, haven't they, compared to
significantly. We were saying that 52% during lockdown one said that they'd reduced their activity. That's jumped up to 69%. So 69% of our respondents are saying that they've been less active, and that's a cumulative effect. This is twice over 6 months we've asked people, and they've said, yes, I've been less active than I used to. So I think it's a combination of two things. Definitely the seasonal element. Without the access to indoor facilities, a lot of the population just don't go outside and do anything. Sometimes it's just as simple as not having street lights. People can't walk and can't run and don't feel safe to go out. So I think that's definitely probably the number one factor. But I also think there is a bit of fatigue. To start off with, during the first lockdown, people were trying new things, buying bikes, accessing new things indoors, buying indoor fitness equipment. We know, I can't the significant percentage, I've got it here, 69% of respondents said they'd purchased a piece of home exercise equipment. The most popular being free weights. 31% of people said they'd bought free weights, and yet people have become significantly less active. So there's definitely fatigue out there. A lot of the newness of doing this stuff at home, exercising independently, has worn off, and people, I think, are just desperate to get back into that, not just into the indoor bit, but the place where they can exercise with peers. And we know that the motivation and guidance from staff is important, again, especially to older groups and to females. So they're missing all of those things.
Absolutely. And that's the piece that links to the mental health as well as the physical health, isn't it? It's that being able to socialize, see your friends, etc., which is really important. Okay, we're coming close to the end of our time. Just give me one more highlight, if you would. Was there anything else that struck you from the results?
I think it's really interesting that we're still finding that customers are feeling significantly more comfortable about returning to their club or centre than other public places.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that we can take real, solace in. We know that's something that's really, really positive. We can't take it for granted, though. I think the sector's done a really good job in promoting the health and the safety of our new systems and processes, and that's been reflected in what they're saying to us. So they're feeling much happier about coming to the gym than going back to libraries, to bowling alleys, to cinemas and places like that. So I think that's a real positive to end on.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Mike. And I'd like to also just say thank you to Active IQ for sponsoring it. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to do our second survey. And also, of course, to all of the operators that help us distribute this to their customers, because without them, we wouldn't get the volumes of responses that we've got. So, Mike, thank you very much for your time. Really good to see you.
Thanks, Dave.
Catch up soon. Take care, mate.
Will do.